Knowledge for Men, episode 97. Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where you're going to grow into the man you want to be. Your life will never be the same again. I can guarantee it. Hey guys, one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately is, can you put together a list of the best books and success quotes from all of your guests and combine that into one guide? And so I've actually just done that. It's called the top 30 books and success quotes every man must live by. So out of all of the podcast episodes I've done, over 60, I finally put together this guide, and you can download it for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com. All right, guys, I'm here with Nguyen, life coach, 5-star chef, international kickboxer, writer, speaker, and founder of the utopianlife.com. Got quite the interesting background here. So, Ty, let's dive in. How you doing?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Andrew. This is a privilege, and I'm super excited.
All right, Ty, so every episode we start off with a favorite success quote or a saying that the guest has lived by. So what do you got for us? And go ahead and explain why.
Yeah, sure. This is a quote that I came across recently, but it's something I've lived by, I guess, throughout my life. It's by an author named Charles Bukowski, but it's, you have to die a few times before you can really live. And for me, just reflecting over my sporadic kind of life, and really the more that I encounter other people and meet other people, it just represents so much of the life journey. And I think that's key there, that it is a journey that we go through. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I know it's a cliche, but it's so true. So for myself, going through all of those different careers and different activities, realizing that we live life forward, but we really understand it looking backwards and looking back and seeing, I guess, the death that we've gone through in these different careers and different life stages, but something that we pull out of it. And drawing from all of those experiences, it's through those deaths that we experience that we really learn how to live. We learn more about who we are, and we learn more about what we're passionate about and what we should focus on.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, when you're in the middle of a crisis, it's so hard to see, and it's almost impossible to see, but sometimes that crisis can be the actual thing that you need in that moment. And it's really, when you look back, you can really connect those dots and see that, hey, it was meant to be. This was actually a gift.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love what you just said about looking back and connecting those dots. And I think the culture that we live in at the moment, it's so focused on finding that one meaning and that one purpose for our life. And it really narrows the scope of life down. And man, that's a lot of pressure to be putting on ourselves. Really, we wander around just chasing after this one massive meaning aha moment, and it's a lot of pressure to live through. And that's why I love this whole idea of dying a few times, failing a few times, messing up a few times, and then seeing it all as the scope of this journey of how we can really live.
Yeah, and I think that really gave us an idea of who you are, a little glimpse, but let's dive deeper. Let's go into your story. So go ahead and share with the audience kind of how you got started with what you do and your background with such an interesting life you have here.
Yeah, sure, Andrew. Well, I was born in Vietnam, left after the war. My dad was actually a politician in the South Vietnamese government, so he got put into prison for about 4 years. And after he was released, we kind of fled the country and made it over to Indonesia, to a refugee camp there. And from there got accepted into Australia, where I grew up there and ended up with this strange accent. I've been labeled as quite the walking contradiction. I've got this very Asian appearance. I look very Vietnamese, but when I talk, I kind of sound like the crocodile hunter, so it throws a lot of people off. But growing up, man, having that different identity, which I know others can relate to, I kind of went through, I guess, a bit of an identity crisis. Here I am, this very Eastern kind of physical appearance, and then growing up in this Western kind of context. So there are positives and negatives. I grew up with a mesh of both worlds, but at the same time, I really couldn't figure out this issue of identity. So that's been a core kind of mission for me in helping others try and find their identity, and kind of the foundation behind my book. but I struggled with fitting into the mold and fitting into what society kind of laid out and said that we should, go to school, get an education, go out, get a job. And there was something deep inside that always rebelled against that. And so as soon as I finished high school, I played a lot of rugby growing up. So I moved over to Canada and played a season of rugby over there, and actually got to represent Nova Scotia in the National Rugby Championships, which is kind of a story in itself because I wasn't a Canadian citizen, but one of the guys in the team was a nightclub owner, and so he had a bunch of confiscated driver's license, and he handed me this one driver's license of another Asian dude that looked nothing like me at all, but it was hysterical because it was like, hey, you're Asian, Ty, this guy's Asian. You can just pretend to be him and play at the national championships. So I did that and sort of went on that journey of self-discovery, trying to figure myself out, taking a year off, moved back to Australia, felt like I needed to, I guess, fit into the mold and get a job. And so I ended up finishing an apprenticeship as a chef at the Hilton Hotel and worked there for a while, ended up opening up my own little cafe with my parents. And during that whole time, I was sort of doing the kickboxing, the Muay Thai on the side, and had a couple of amateur fights in Australia, and had a bit of success there and got invited to move to Thailand to pursue it professionally. So I moved over to Thailand and lived over there for close to 2 years and had a bunch of professional fights internationally. I got to actually go back to Canada and fight the Canadian champion there, and got to compete over in Singapore and a few other cool places. But while I was living in Thailand, I actually ran into some missionaries from a school in Texas and really hit it off with one of the older guys, and he became kind of like a father figure to me and invited me to move over to Texas to complete my bachelor's degree over there. So I moved over to Texas, finished my bachelor's degree in humanities over there, and then found myself sort of in a position where I had a lot of expectations to become a church minister. And just, again, deep down inside, having this feeling where it just wasn't me, but it was so tough. And I think this is something a lot of people can relate to, is that just this huge burden of expectations from so many people that you respect and you care for. But deep down inside, I was just like, this whole church minister thing just isn't me. And I just sort of took a step back from everything. And I remember I was taking a lot of flights to a lot of different churches, speaking at different churches and preaching. And I found myself confronted with this question of, if I was to die today, would I be happy with my life and what I'm doing? And it was a sobering and sad no. So I kind of had, an early midlife crisis where I just sat down and I thought, look, life is short. We only get this one life. And so I thought about what are the things that I really value in life. And I thought about my love for traveling, my love for writing, my love for connecting with people and trying to help people through words. And so I changed directions and moved to Cusco, Peru. And here I am now, just focusing on becoming a full-time writer.
Wow. So much said in such a short amount of time here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you've done so much here. I mean, international kickboxing, and you were pretending to be someone else because the officials couldn't even see the difference because it's just two Asian guys.
Yeah, it's pretty sporadic, and a lot of people look at it as interesting, and I guess it is interesting, but I think underlying all of that was a ton of frustration, Andrew, which led to me doing so many different things. It's just that search for finding identity and finding meaning. And that's why I go back to it being a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to find this one meaning. And as I've looked back on all of that, I've just been like, man, if I just embraced it all as this journey, because really, I mean, it was fueled by a lot of frustration. I was jumping from one thing to another because of this pressure about, look, you need to find what you're passionate about. You need to find meaning and purpose in life. So I was like racing in all of these different directions. And I look back now and I'm like, man, if I had just looked at it all as this journey of self-discovery and just taken that pressure off. And that's a big part of my message now to people is make the distinction between your values and your vehicle.
Huh. Can you break that down for us and elaborate?
So your values are the things that make you happy, the things that make you excited and passionate. And your vehicle is the thing that's going to deliver these things. And it doesn't have to be one thing. They can be different vehicles. So I had like the chef vehicle that delivered these passions. I had the kickboxing vehicle, and I should have embraced it rather than trying to find this one vehicle.
Yeah, I interviewed Steven Kotler. He wrote a book called The Rise of Superman, and he talks about this thing called flow,
Yeah.
and how you can get it from doing different things. Like, you don't have to do just one thing, and that's the only source of flow. He says that that's actually dangerous, but he suggests doing multiple different things in your life that produce flow. Like, you could be hiking, the next month you're skiing, and then the next month you're playing guitar, etc. But you're doing all these different things, and all of these add up to the bigger picture, and you're getting a stronger sense of a higher state of flow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely. And I think there's an element of ourselves that's changeable, and there's an element that's unchangeable. There should be a person that's sort of underlying throughout all of these different careers that we have, that we embrace, that we're so comfortable with, and that sort of is this underlying foundation that everything else is built on top of.
Yeah, and Ty, you've done a lot of traveling, so I'm wondering, how has traveling helped you discover yourself? How has it helped you on your journey, traveling the world and seeing all the different places?
Oh, it's been huge, and probably more so now that I've gotten so much more into neuroscience and neuroplasticity and psychology, to be able to look back and see the growth at a neurological level when you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, when you expose yourself to a completely different language. You're creating these new neuro maps and neuro pathways in your brain. So I didn't recognize that at the time, but looking back now, I realized, man, that did come for me in terms of growth. And although there were times that I was close to 30 when I finished my undergrad, and I regretted that at one point, thinking, oh, I wish I did that sooner rather than traveling. But now I look back and I'm just so thankful for all of those experiences. I think stepping outside of your comfort zone, being exposed to new and different things, not only on a neurological level does it benefit you, but just overall in terms of being exposed to different cultures, to different people, you just become a much more well-rounded person.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes, we're trying to figure out what to do, like, so hard that it's almost depressing. Oftentimes we have this one thing in our mind, and we have to get it done. This has to be complete. Like, we won't quit. And this is the only thing. And we don't even know if this is the right thing. Like, if this ladder is even leaned up against the right wall, like, do we even want to get to the top? And it's really something to think about there. And I think you're a good example of someone who's taken massive action and who has experienced a lot of life, and almost like a jack of all trades, if you will.
Yeah, and that reminds me of just some advice I got from one of my mentors. He said, so many people are too comfortable with being uncomfortable, and we just, even though the situation we're in is not good for us, because we're familiar with it, it creates this false sense of comfort, and we stay in it. We become comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it's such a sneaky kind of like a hidden cancer that eats away at so many people. It's easier for people to stay in an uncomfortable situation, even though it's so detrimental. But it's so sad to see, and part of my motivation to spark people out of that. And I know that's what you're doing, Andrew, for so many people, is to sort of pave the way and show them and be an example that, it stinks to stay in a crappy situation. And even though it's difficult to step out of that, the growth and the experience that you get pushing through that initial difficulty is just so rewarding.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, how has being a five-star chef helped you on your journey? I only bring this up because I recently just watched a documentary called Euro Dreams of Sushi, and it's about this master sushi chef near Tokyo, Japan, and it's a Michelin 3-star rated restaurant. People travel from all over the world just to go and eat sushi with Euro,
Yeah.
and he's been doing it all his life, and it really breaks down how being a sushi chef or being a chef in general, it was a path to mastery for him. Like, he is a master sushi chef, and he applies so much of what he learns with creating sushi, like the best sushi ever, to his own life. So I'm wondering if you're able to draw any parallels to being a five-star chef and how that's, what that's taught you about life.
Yeah, I went through a stage where at first I loved the cooking, and then when I ended up doing 16, 18-hour days, it absolutely killed me. But recently I went back into it, and I kind of, I guess with more maturity, approached it differently, and I did learn different things. I think the creative aspect of being a chef and taking these different foods and balancing out the flavors and presenting it on a dish was something that carried over to different areas, even especially in writing as well. It's funny to see the parallels now that I've gone into writing. You're sourcing information from different areas, and just like a chef, you're taking ingredients from different types of vegetables. You're trying to balance out the flavors and the crispy things, the hard things, the density of the different foods, and balancing them out. And so I've actually learned recently with the writing, taking different elements from that. How do I balance out my writing? Is this paragraph too heavy, too dense, and things like that? So it is interesting to see how past experiences really cross over, and how you learn from them.
Huh. And how about from being a Muay Thai kickboxer? I mean, you went to Thailand and trained Muay Thai kickboxing. You traveled across the world fighting. What did you learn from this experience?
I think the biggest thing I got was just keep turning up, and that's something that I've taken from the fighting to everything else. Even on the days where you just, and although it's important to rest, there are days that you're simply just being a little sissy and you don't want to turn up to training. But I just learned that if you turn up every single day, you don't know what's on the other end of that day, and it could be something amazing. I mean, I wake up every day and I do the work, and I don't know what's on the other end of that. I'll send out the emails as much as some days that I want to sleep in. I mean, I had no idea that I'd get to connect with you and be featured on the podcast, but I woke up, I sent my emails out, I did my writing, and then I hear back from you. So it's just about, if you show up every day, you don't know what's on the other end, and usually they're great things. And that was the biggest lesson from the fighting, turning up and just training every day. And one day the manager would come up and say, "Hey, do you want to take this fight in Singapore?" And if I'd been in bed that day, I mean, who knows, he may not have come up to me and asked me for that fight. So I think it's so crucial and so important just to show up and just to do the work, and kind of just leave the results or the outcome up to God, up to the universe, up to fate, up to sovereignty, whatever. So that was the biggest lesson.
Yeah, at first I thought you were saying turn it up, like, fight harder, like turn it up like even more. But what you're saying is show up. You never know what's going to happen if you show up each day.
Yeah, show up for training, get through the grind, and leave the outcome up to God.
All right, got it. And earlier you mentioned something that you asked yourself this question, and it really kind of struck me, but you said, if I was to die today, would I be happy with the life I've lived? Now, where did this come from? Did you just come up to this? Were you just thinking, or were you reading something? Can you go deeper into this experience here?
It came out of, I was flying around the US and preaching at these different churches, and for whatever reason, every time the plane would go to land, I'd kind of think, oh dang man, imagine if the plane just crashed and blew up in a whole heap of fire and smoke. And so that's where the question came out of me, just taking a lot of flights and going into land and thinking, man, if this plane crashes, if this is it, I mean, would I be happy with things? So that's where it spawned out of.
Yeah, I think, many of us have had, that kind of experience at some point. You're landing, it's real loud, and you just kind of think like, what if? And, it's a really powerful question. And I'm wondering, what is it about death that really spawns people to take more risk? That really triggers that gut level, that instinct level reaction where it's like, this is what I need to do with my life. Like, this is what I haven't completed with my life. Like, this is what I should be doing right now. Why am I doing this? what is it about death you think that really triggers that?
I think it's just the realization that this could be it. I mean, as much as we hypothesize and throw out theories on what the afterlife looks like, or if there is life after death, ultimately, I think everyone has to boil down to the fact that we don't know with absolute certainty. And I think that was a sobering thought, that I don't know with absolute certainty what is going to happen after this life is over. And so I want to make the most of the life that we have here. And I think also, just the older we get, and I think you'll agree, that the faster time seems to go by. And that was another thing, just thinking, man, I'm 30 years old now, and so I wanted to live a life that I would lay my head down at night each night and just smile about and be happy about.
Yeah, I think it's a question that provides perspective and clarity. It really just wakes you up and brings you back to consciousness, like out of that zombie mode that we often can kind of get trapped in, right? And understanding that this is something that will happen. It's not like a maybe, it will happen. And like you said, you only get one shot at this, so let's make it the best experience ever and not settle for mediocrity.
Yeah, I think it was Steve Jobs in that commencement speech where he talks about death, and he says that profound quote about just really confronting death. I think he says, remembering that you're going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You're already naked. There's no reason not to follow your heart. And that was something that really struck me as well. Just I guess confront death in a way, and the sobering effects of when you do confront a death kind of spurs you on to the direction that you knew all along that you should have been headed towards.
I love that speech. I've literally listened to that at least 100 times. It's on my iPhone. It's on the playlist. So now, Ty, let's enter the knowledge round. Are you ready?
Ready to rock and roll, Andrew.
Do you ever have so many books to read that you end up not reading at all? You have so many books in your library, on your list of books that you want to read, but you don't know which books to tackle first? I know in all of my episodes, I ask guests, what are your favorite books? What are your most influential books? And they always list 3 or 4. And I always ask guests for their favorite success quote. I find that quotes can be so powerful sometimes, yet there's so many available. So what I've done is I put together a list of the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that I think every man must live by. And these are directly from guests on the Knowledge for Men podcast. And as you know, some of the guests on my show sold their companies for millions of dollars. They're running billion-dollar organizations. They're dating coaches. They're health coaches. They're entrepreneurs. They're celebrities on TV. They're mixed martial artists. Just this wide variety of great minds. And I put together a list of the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that every man must live by. You can download this guide for free at kfmfree.com. Again, that's kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, Ty, in the first question, how would you explain the utopian life to a newcomer?
The utopian life is a launch pad for personal revolution and evolution.
And what kind of advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of what they should do with their life?
Set aside others' expectations and really, if there was no one to counsel you on what you should do, what decision you should make, and use that as a reference point. And that's not to say that you shouldn't listen to anyone else's advice. I think ultimately, when your decisions are based upon that inner passion, that inner feeling, you're gonna be able to go to bed at night a lot easier than if you'd gone with someone else's decision.
Huh, I like that. And Ty, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
I think good options that were distracting me from the right option and the best option. I think for a lot of us, it's not making a decision between like a crappy situation and a good one. I mean, that's an easy choice to make. When it's difficult is when we have good and safe options presented in front of us, and having to differentiate between the best and the right option, and stepping out and doing that. And again, a lot of others' expectations hold you back and keep you in that realm of good choices and safe choices. So I think that the biggest difficulty for me and for most people is stepping away from the good and the safe towards the right and the best.
And that might not be the most comfortable path.
No, no. No.
Yeah. Now, can you name someone who's been a mentor in your life, someone who's played a critical role in your growth and development? What has he or she shared with you?
Whew. I've probably had an ongoing mentor, a gentleman by the name of Russell Minnick, who I actually met while I was competing and fighting in Thailand, and he's probably one of the most intelligent guys I know. But basically, in all his wisdom, when I was trying to pick his brain, he just said, "Ty, just do what you love." And as simple as that is, it's probably the most profound and helpful that I've gotten from him.
Yeah, really simple, but sometimes that's what we need is just simple. There's no complex sometimes. It's just right in front of your face. Well, now, Ty, what are your three most influential books and why?
Yeah, I love the ancient philosophers. I'm actually reading through Epictetus and his discourses at the moment, and also, I guess, Marcus Aurelius and his meditations. That's something that's been pretty profound. Also, a third book. Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm actually Anne Lamott has got a great book called Bird by Bird, and it's about writing. So that's been really helpful with the whole writing journey.
Yeah, and guys listening, you can pick up one of these books for free at kfmbook.com. So if you want to jump in on the Greek philosophers, which
Oh,
I'm
really?
currently doing right now, if you go to kfmbook.com, it'll take you to an Audible link and you'll get a free audiobook download. So any book of your choice, really, kfmbook.com. And back to the episode, Ty, man, I'm reading Epictetus right now. I was reading it last night, and then so it was like the last thing I read before I had a conversation with you this morning. And I'm wondering, what's your take on Stoicism? You know, how is it helping you in your growth?
Yeah, I just wrote a big article for Addicted to Success. I think you interviewed Joel Brown, but I wrote an article on Stoicism. But it's been something that's been really profound. I think the more people recently come across it, the more it affirms, in many ways, things that we'd been striving at all along. And it's a huge aha moment, an eye opener when people read this ancient literature and be like, dang, that's, it's so relevant to today, and really that approach of really thinking about your thinking, and separating yourself from how you process the external world. It's fascinating, and it blows my mind that stuff like this old, you're talking what, 400, 500 BC is so relevant to today.
I know sometimes you're just reading through it and you're like, how does this guy know everything? Has the
Absolutely.
answers to everything. And it was written thousands of years ago. It's
Oh,
insane.
it's amazing.
And now, Ty, scenario here for you. Imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I'd tell myself, just relax, man. Just enjoy the journey. Don't race around frantically trying to figure out what your meaning and your purpose is in life. I think your meaning and your purpose is to just wake up every day, and embrace the day. Be thankful that you're alive. Be thankful that you get to do what you love, and do it. And let go of the outcome. Let go of the results, and just embrace the journey. Be in that flow moment where you're doing it because you love it, because there's that inherent value in it. And just relax. That'd be the biggest thing. Just relax, dude. Chill out.
Yeah, and I can see when someone is really frustrated or almost envy of others who are on their path. It can really cause a lot of frustration. There's probably listeners on the show who are, we often say like, find your passion, find your purpose, like, try new things, experiment with life. And if guys aren't doing that, then they might feel like they're left out, or kind of like just like they're not pushing themselves as much as they feel like they could be. And I think it's nice to be able to hear that, just like let go, let it flow is what I'm getting from you. Is like, let it flow, and it can come, but you still take action and pursue what you want, but don't be so hard on yourself.
But I mean, I do want to clarify, that's not to say that you just wake up and have absolutely no direction. I do think it's important to have a direction to head towards, but to kind of just relax about the outcome a little. I definitely do think, I mean, it's a both and scenario. It's not an either or. It's not you either chase after your meaning and purpose, or you just trash it and don't worry about it. It's just about having that balance between the two, enjoying the journey, but also still focusing on the destination.
Right. And now, Ty, do you know of an underrated characteristic that if every man would work on this, they could see massive results in their life? What is it? What would that be, and why?
Oh, I think introversion, solitude, and quietness. I think we live in a world that trumpets extroversion, that trumpets the loud and the opinionated. And while there's a place for that, and while I think it's entertaining, I think being comfortable with who you are, being able to spend time alone in solitude, is something that's not preached, that's not emphasized, that's not really talked about. And I think a lot of people get uncomfortable when they're by themselves, when they're detached from social media, when they're detached from their phone. People tend to go into freak out mode because they're not used to solitude and quietness. And so I think that's a good quality to cultivate, and for every guy to get alone every now and then, and be comfortable with who you are, and definitely master your inner dialogue, and the thoughts, and the commentary that runs through your mind.
I remember, this reminds me of a time when I was in college, and it happened a couple times, but there was a blackout. And what was really interesting about the blackout is, because there's no electricity in the house, like everyone would just come out of their apartment, of their condo, of their house, and like form like little circles out in the street. And like the circles would be like really big. And to me, it felt like it was almost tribal, like how it probably looked, back in the day. It's just, that people would just come out and they'd form these big circles, and like people just started talking and socializing and connecting. And I felt like that's the way it's supposed to be naturally. And what was funny though, and it happened every time that there was a blackout, but as soon as the electricity came back on, everyone ran back into their room and went straight back to their computer, to go on Facebook and connect through their computer.
Yeah.
And, I just thought it was so interesting. I had to bring that up right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, again, it's that balance of being in control of technology, and being under the control of technology. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us fall under being under control. That's why I think separating yourself every now and then is a healthy behavior or practice to work on.
Yeah, a big tip that I have is that I've been using this app called Self-Control.
That is so. I just downloaded that the other day.
Yeah, I use this too.
That is so funny.
Yeah, it's really good. And this app blocks all the sites that distract you. Like, you have to input it yourself, but obviously Facebook, Gmail, or your email, news sites, other social media sites like Reddit or Dig, all that stuff you can block, and it really helps you focus on what matters most.
No, it is liberating. You said it perfectly.
Yeah. And now, reflecting back on your life as a life coach, world traveler, chef, fighter, writer, speaker, what would you say, just kind of drill down, maybe summarize, what's your philosophy on life and success?
Man, I'd probably have to go back to my mentor, Russell, what he said, just do what you love, and really making that distinction between what you value and your vehicle. What's going to deliver these things, and you can be hard on one and soft on the other. I think you should be hard on what you value. Those should be non-negotiables, and what you should be flexible on is your vehicle. I mean, that can change over the years. You can take a different career, and don't be so hard on yourself about quitting on those areas. So be willing to make flexible changes with your vehicle, but don't be willing to compromise your values.
I'm not even kidding right now, but as you were talking, there was just like a mini earthquake where
Are you
my room
serious?
just started shaking. I'm not even kidding. The room just started shaking. I was just like listening to you, like this must be the word. The word has been spoken.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It must be a message that this is the best saying, is the best words ever spoken.
Yeah, yeah. Could you make sure that's in the show notes as Ty spoke these words, an earthquake happened, so it must be like divine or something.
I'm not even kidding. Like I put my headphones down. I was like, wait, what's happening here?
That's crazy. There was an earthquake here just the other day in Cusco.
Is that Cusco, Peru?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, so are you drinking a lot of yerba mate?
I haven't. I've been drinking a lot of coca tea. That seems to be the other alternative to yerba mate.
Wow, is that the actual cocoa leaf?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, that's the real deal. That's the leaf that turns into cocaine.
yeah, yeah. It is pretty strong.
All right. Well, now Ty, what's exciting you today? Like, what's really getting you out of bed in the morning?
Well, I'm working on my first book. That's got me ridiculously excited. So just to wake up and get to do that, man, to wake up and just live the dream, it's awesome, man, to be supported through my writing. Although I'm not where I want to be yet, I mean, I'm living the dream, and just that's what I want to motivate others to be able to do the same, to wake up and do that. But my book, hopefully get it done by, I'm hoping it's done by November. So just cranking that out every day. I get up in the morning, go for a jog up to one of the ancient Incan ruins and come back, do some writing, walk down to the market, eat some ridiculously cheap Peruvian food, and come back. So every day's got me excited, but specifically the book. So I'm hoping that's going to be done by November.
Sounds like you're busy. Really exciting. What's the title of the book?
Yeah, it's going to be, at this point, it's going to be Flip Your Script. So it's just about being really mindful about your internal dialogue, and a lot about what we talked about, really just intentionally looking at the story that's driving your life, because everyone has a story that's driving their life, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so I want to bring people to the point where they're not only conscious about that story, but able to craft that story. I can't remember who it was that said it, but the best way to predict your future is to write it. And so that's basically what the book is about, is just moving away from being a passive observer of life to being an active architect for life.
Sounds really good. And Ty, how can my audience follow up with you in the future?
Yeah, I'd definitely love to connect with your audience. I'm on the utopianlife.com. On Twitter, I'm at Ty Wins, ThaiWins. And you can connect with me on Facebook through my website also. But definitely reach out just to say hi. If there's any advice, any guidance I could give your listeners, that would make my day. So don't hold back.
All right, Ty, thank you so much for your time and sharing. I mean, throwing earthquakes as you talk and shaking the world as you drop some life advice. All right, Ty, your story's been great. I'm happy that we connected here.
Hey, man, it was awesome connecting, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Loved it, man.
All right, and that's going to wrap up episode 97 with Ty Nguyen. Hey guys, and the countdown continues to episode 100, 3 more episodes, and we will be there. And so I'm really excited. I've been actually prepping for the episode. I don't even think I've shared what I'm doing. It'll be mostly just kind of a surprise, but I was planning on getting some, crazy guests, some celebrity, and I was going to try and make it this big thing where I got a bunch of the fans and put together this spectacle. And then I just kind of really thought about, the purpose of Knowledge for Men, like what I'm really doing here. And I'm not trying to create like some like show where it's about like celebrities and stuff, as it is so much about just like, getting inspiring, motivational, life-changing content and changing men's lives. And so I decided not to do that big, spectacle where it's this huge show, and really just focus on, the core values of the show. And so what I was going to do is episode 100, I'm just going to be talking about some real vulnerable stuff and how it's transformed my life and how I believe it's going to help you and add value into your life. And it'll probably be the most vulnerable episode within the last 100 episodes or so. Well, that's just a little preview, and you'll hear more about that as we climb towards episode 100. And guys, I'm at currently 925,000 downloads. I would love your support in sharing this podcast with your friends, with your coworkers, with your family, anyone that you think could find value in what we're doing here together. Share Knowledge for Men with them. I'd like to see more downloads. I'd like to see higher rankings, not because it helps me, but because it helps more people. And so the more downloads I get, just it increases the rankings, and the more views I get, it increases the rankings, and the higher rankings means more people will organically find and discover the podcast. And I keep getting emails every day from people. Every day. It's just incredible. It's one of my favorite parts about waking up. It's making that coffee, making that green tea, and then checking email and just like looking and reading through people who, listeners of the podcast and how their life has transformed or changed in some dramatic way from listening to the podcast. And that's the whole point of this whole show. So it's really just, it really lifts me up to see that, people are listening and taking action and are seeing some changes in their life just by listening to me and these different guests that I have on the show. It really lights a fire under my ass to just keep going, despite all the challenges that come with trying to do this thing. So yeah, if you haven't left a review on the podcast and you've listened to quite a few of the shows, I'd really appreciate if you would just go to iTunes, go to Knowledge for Men, and go to ratings and review, and write something. I read them all. Write something. Leave a review of your choice, whatever star you feel is appropriate, and get that done, because that's going to help the podcast out. I know that there's a ton of value in this show, and I would like your support in helping to touch more lives. So share this with a friend. Leave a review if you haven't already, and continue listening. All right, guys, crush it. Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.